Hello and welcome to another, this time really quick, Atypical Philosopher video with myself, Jonathan MSP. It's just a really rapid musing that I wanted to share with you. Wonder what you might have as an answer to this, or ideas you might have about this. I did record this the other day, but then I subsequently did one about moral philosophy and how to do sort of strategy on the back of that moral philosophy. So which is like what's your goal? So once you know what your goal is, then your strategy kind of follows afterwards to some degree. So what I'm going to say now needs to be taken in that sort of context. But I was having a chat with someone on one of my YouTube threads, and I was talking about how, realistically, the Ukrainians could be, making an incursion through this Svatova to Kremna area around Krasnyorechensky across the P66 highway and across the Krasna River. They could come and take Starobilsk, and then they could end up, taking this entire Luhansk Oblast, really, such that they liberate the entire area. And let's have a look at that in terms of what would happen to their front lines. Well, actually, in order for Luhansk to be completely liberated, you obviously are liberating the border everywhere up to the border with Russia. And then let's assume that there. So what you are doing is you are effectively swapping what is going to be this blue line down here as their present front line and swapping it for the entire green area there, which is actually a bit of a problem. So liberating Luhansk, although Ukraine obviously want to liberate all of their area, all of the occupied territories, eventually, to liberate Luhansk or the northern Luhansk Oblast is to leave themselves open to a much, much longer front line. In fact, it's 3 to 4 times the length of the front line they already have. So if they did do this, had some major incursion into there, maybe took Starobilsk, and then went around, mopped up, and then the Russians all retreated, and they contained all this, they controlled all this area here. Actually, this would work against them because they then would have to have troops to not only fight, defend, attack, or whatever they're trying to do on this front line. You would assume eventually attack, right? But they would also potentially have to defend this entire front line this entire border with Russia. And then suddenly they've got to have a load more troops that would otherwise be engaged in other maneuvers, saving them or guarding them from being attacked from the rear. So I think it's an interesting ramification of liberating large amounts of land is that it ends up being counterproductive. It's certainly in the short term. I mean, in the long term, they have to do that, right? So then it's a case of, okay, well, I mean, what would you do? What would I do? This is what I was talking about the other night, saying, well, it depends what your objectives are. Like what I would do is entirely dependent upon what I think success is. And yes, eventually it's taking the entire territory back. Okay, but before that, it's going to be degrading the Russian army such that they are unable to fight or feel they have lost or have no option other than to withdraw. I mean, I talked about this in a previous video, which I called the paradox of Ukraine, which is, or the paradox of Putin or whatever. But it was this idea that the better they do, the more likely it is Putin's going to do something crazy like nuclear or something like that. So there's a real tension there because they really want to do well and they want to get Russia to a point where they have no option but to say, okay, we're going to negotiate now, and Ukraine would be in a power position. But just before they do that, Putin might be the sort of leader that says, I can't ever get to this position where I'm going to have to kind of accept that I've lost and this was all a bad idea, and therefore I'm going to send in the nukes or whatever. So it's a really difficult, it's a really fine line the Ukrainians have to navigate here between doing so well that Putin just explodes with rage, but obviously doing well enough such that the Russians have no option but to concede that that this was all a bad idea. I don't know how best you do that. What are those stepping stones towards that larger objective of Russia, giving up, or is it a case of actually just outright defeating the Russians, and then what'll happen will happen? In the hope that you get to that point and there's a coup or there's a revolution, or so many people are going back in body bags that the public just really stand up to the authorities. It's so difficult trying to juggle all these variables and work out what the best option is when one of your objectives is going to be not to lose troops. Like I said before, in terms of um, Kherson, right? If you understand Kherson as being having two objectives there: one, retaking that territory; two, not losing any troops. If your objective is not to lose Ukrainian troops, then you do exactly what they did, and it was a massive success. So you soften up all of the logistics here and behind the river, knowing that they can't get across the river because you've blown up the bridges, and then it forces them to retreat, and they retreat. You don't really take any. They don't take any casualties, and actually they didn't really lose any equipment, particularly, or much equipment. Now, if your objective was killing as many soldiers as possible or taking as much equipment as possible, then that would be a complete failure. But if it was taking territory without losing troops, it was an absolute success. And therefore your objectives define, how you go about doing your task, and we'll define what your task is, right? Um, so yeah, do they try? Get what is the point of breaking through here in Svatova? Or below Svatova in this Krasnoyarchensky, Chervonopipivka area. What are you doing? What's the point of this? And because we don't really know what's in the mind of the Ukrainians there, it's difficult to say what they should do. Like I don't know what your intentions are, so therefore I can't advise you. Not that I would, you know what I mean, um, on what to do. So it's really difficult. What would I do? Like I said to you before, I would just be using my troops around here to play merry havoc with their logistics, but in a way that keeps these troops as safe as possible, so that they are not cut off and isolated. So you would need to do a wide um, kind of bridgehead. And this is what I was going to talk to you about the other day. So one of the options has been to attack down through or by or between Melitopol, Berdyansk, Mariupol, somewhere around here. But the problem is, if you go right, we're going to head down to the coast and then head left, right? Job done. You do that, and the Russians are going to suddenly go, okay, thank you very much. We're going to now close the gap here, and we're going to cut you off and isolate you, and then pick you off. So you absolutely don't want to be doing that. Instead, and I'm sure there are going to be military tacticians who are trained in this sort of stuff that can put me right. But you'd want some kind of bridgehead that is wide. As soon as you're narrow, you can just be attacked from both sides, right? You don't want to be attacked from both sides, and that just be an absolute nightmare. So once you have that, you want that, and maybe it goes like this, and you are defending that bridgehead right across there, and eventually you've just got this wide channel going all the way down. But the advantage of attacking down here, as opposed to up in the Luhansk area that we were looking at, is that when you get to this the end here, you've got the sea, right, and you're not opening up a whole load of border for the Russians to be able to attack you from. Yeah, they could have amphibious attacks, but and that might be interesting this side of Crimea, actually, whether there would be a much greater chance of the Russians attacking from the sea here than maybe in the Kherson, Odessa, Mykolaiv area. But the idea is that you want a wide, salient to cut these two in half, and then destroy all the logistics in doing so. Or do you not even do that? You just basically head down to Tokmak there, and then from there maybe head to around Melitopol like that, and job done. You've now cut off. You don't even need to go into Melitopol. It's all about cutting off the road. So as soon as you've done that and the Kerch Bridge is done, then where does Crimea get any of its stuff from? Of course, they're going to struggle, right? So you know, Crimea with the Kerch is the importance of taking out the Kerch again if they can. Once this gets fixed around there, they need to hit that again because it's, I'd say, relatively easy. I mean, that is not is doable, right? And then suddenly all of this area can't be supplied. With the rail lines, there's only one real rail line through there, and as you're doing that, of course, you are doing HIMARS attacks on places like just here, Volnovakha and around there, where the train line sort of goes down there. You just do another incursion there, job done. That, to me, would just be massive for taking out Crimea. And then you can just send drone after missile, do a saturation attack on the Kerch Bridge. You do a saturation attack where you just do exactly what the Russians do. Send 20 drones and missiles, whatever you have, send it all at the Kerch. The idea that 90% of them get taken out by air defense, but you get a few through, and Kerch becomes unusable again. And that, to me, would be really good. So it's all about, for me personally, it's all about logistics. It's about starving the Russian army such that they have nothing and they lose a will to fight and the ability to fight. Because if you're going to just take them out, take them head on, then that is just going to be a meat grinder. You only have to look at the Donetsk front, and that's a meat grinder for both sides. And really, Ukraine aren't going to want to engage in any fighting like that. You want some incursions, take out logistics, and then survey your options. Anyway, let me know whether I'm making any sense at all. Just a quick musing that's gone on longer than I was hoping by about 5 minutes, but there you go. Cheers. Speak to you tomorrow.